sisters and friends, happy Monday, everybody. Y'all, I'm so excited for today. Y'all are going to be so excited too because I have one of my friends and mentors, April Rodgers, on the podcast today. And if y'all have not heard of her book, Made to Shine, it is 90-day devotions to enjoy and reflect God's light. You got to go get this book. It will encourage you so much and help you just be the light of the world. And April, I'm just so glad that you're on the podcast because we had lunch recently.
I know.
And after having lunch, I was like, everybody needs to hear this conversation. It was so good.
I know.
I know. It was actually our first time to have lunch. Our husbands have lunch.
Yes.
Often.
They get to have all the fun. We shouldn't let them have the fun.
No, we were like, what's happening over there? Why aren't we going to lunch? And so we did. And you just encouraged me so much through that lunch by just listening to my story and telling me some of yours. And it was just awesome. It was really fun. A blessing.
I know. There's so much to discuss. We have a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. So for those who don't know April, she helps lead the women's ministry at our church. And she's also a mentor on the Ella Sister app. Yes. So some of you might know her from that. Like I said, she's written a book. She's done several things. But tell us a little bit about your life. What's life look like? Your husband, your kids, all the things.
Married to a great man named Adams. We have been married almost 22 years.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? I mean, it has flown by.
That's
and
awesome.
Then we have two beautiful daughters, Addie, she is 16, and Ella is 13. So my life looks a lot like your life is going to look in the future.
Yes.
But it's really so much fun. I love being a girl mom.
That's
and,
awesome.
Adams is a really good girl dad.
Yes, he is, which is great for a Christian to have that influence. And I think that's what is cool. Whenever we went to lunch, I was like, whoa, my life is going to look a lot like yours one day. Two girls in ministry and all the things. So it was just fun to learn from you. And now I'm glad a lot of people are going to get to learn from you. And it was really cool. So I told you this, but just for context for those who are watching, we took in a lot of just DMs that you guys sent about topics that y'all were struggling through. And someone sent in just the verse of how God takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it for good. Yeah. And, how can that be true? And so a lot of what April and I are going to talk about is leading us to that verse, to that thought. But before we get there, which I'm excited to get there, I want to know how you and Adams met because you shared this with me and I love this story. And girls out there love a good meeting story.
It is a dramatic love story.
It is dramatic.
We do not have that much time to go into the whole thing, but Adams and I actually went to college together. And we were not boyfriend-girlfriend. We were mainly just friends because he was dating a sorority sister of mine. I was dating a fraternity brother of his. And so it was off limits.
I forgot that part of the drama. Yeah, There's so much to this story. I forgot that part.
But I was in Sociology 101 and I walked in and I saw this guy and I was like, oh, he is so cute. I need to know more about him. So I found out that he was a drummer. And I found out what fraternity he was in. But then I started to find out that it wasn't going to work while we were in college. But we had the same major. So we had all of our classes together. And we were in these study groups. And since he was a drummer, he would have those little hands tapping the whole time. And I was wanting to throw him out constantly. But I love that because our relationship was built on friendship first, which is really a great foundation to build a marriage upon in the future.
That's cool.
But as time progressed, I stayed here and I was in financial planning and I thought that I would do that for the rest of my life. I was being groomed to take over my father's business, actually. And Adams was in retail management and he was up in Nashville and I was in Monroe, and we started to date long distance because after we graduated, we were like, well, maybe this will work out now. So we'll start talking on the phone. And he would call me every day to check on his IRA investments.
No.
It was he would call me on the little 800 number and he would say, how are my investments doing today? Did I go up? Did my stocks go up? And it was $2,000, Sadie. I mean, there was nothing in there. But as time progressed, we said, okay, well, let's just see if this will work out. So we start dating long distance, Nashville, Monroe, Louisiana. We say, okay, well, it would be good if we could get closer geographically. Well, I found out that I could move to Atlanta And Atlanta was only 3 hours away from Nashville, not far. And I took a job there, and I was like, this is going to be great. And as soon as I got moved in to my new apartment, he gets transferred to San Diego.
So crazy. It's so crazy.
Oh my gosh, this is terrible. So now not only are we like a country apart, but now we're 3 time zones different. And I just remember he would call me, and it would be like 7 o'clock his time and 10 o'clock my time. And I had to get up and go to work the next day. And he wanted to talk on the phone forever.
Did you ever think during this time it wasn't going to work out? Or were you all like, okay.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, should I start dating other people? Yeah. Should he? But the Lord just kept bringing us back together and back together. And I had mentioned that he found the Lord whenever he was in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
A group of guys led him to the Lord. So he was a new believer, but I knew that I wanted somebody who was pursuing a relationship with the Lord, because the Lord had already pursued him.
Yeah.
But I wanted somebody who was actively trying to have that relationship with Christ, and Adam's was at that point in time. And so as we dated like that for a year, I kept telling my employer, I was like, I've got to get to the West Coast. I've got to get over there. And they're like, well, we can get you to Dallas, but we can't get you all the way to California. I was like, that's not going to do. So I start interviewing with a money management firm over there. Great job, overlooking the bay in San Diego. I'm going in for my final interview. And he's like, hey, I got transferred to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, this is the worst.
Yes.
This is just the worst.
Like right when you're actually getting excited about moving.
I know.
Gosh.
But we had already planned to have the U-Haul come and like take me out. And so literally I got online, found an apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, started putting my resume out. We have to drive the U-Haul to Phoenix. He unloads it at my new apartment, but he has to keep driving it to San Diego to turn it in. So then that way he wouldn't get dinged on the money.
Oh my gosh.
So then,
and how long of a time period was all that?
Well, that was about 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. Y'all dated long distance for 3 years. Okay, so for the people out there dating long distance, any advice that you have?
Hang in there.
Yeah.
And now technology is so good.
Yeah, it's true.
You can see each other on FaceTime. I mean, back then we just had phones.
Yeah.
And, email.
Yeah, email. That's so awesome. So y'all get to Phoenix, and then shortly after.
Shortly after we got engaged, and then after we got engaged, my employer at Merrill Lynch kept trying to hire him, and he was like, nah, I'm okay with my job. But because we knew we wanted to eventually get back to Monroe, the Lord worked it out that the manager over here had a meeting in Phoenix. He interviews Adams, hires him on the spot. So awesome. We got married, went on our honeymoon, came back, packed up our apartments, drove the U-Hauls back to Monroe, Louisiana, and he started work at Merrill Lynch.
Gosh, that is crazy. So at the time, were you still working?
I was, yeah.
That job too. Okay, awesome. And y'all lived in Monroe.
I did.
Gosh, y'all's story is so cool and so crazy. And I love it because it's true. Like, if you know that, if God keeps drawing you to the same person, if you know it's the right thing, and whether that's a person or a job or something you're working towards, like, it's so important to stay with it. And so many of us just like give up so soon, or we think, oh, because this doesn't make sense, it must not be God. But I've found a lot of times it's the thing that doesn't make sense that normally is God.
That's right. That's right.
It normally is like, oh, okay. Yeah, and there's something God's teaching you in that. And then there's some times where it's clear, okay, this actually, we're long distance and there's more problems in the distance. Right. And this is actually just not supposed to be. But I love it.
And like I said, had we not had those years of friendship that we built upon, we probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
But because we knew each other for 4 years,
it's true.
We had studied together, we had pretty much all our classes together. We had that ability to build upon it.
That's cool. Okay, so y'all moved back to Monroe, and then shortly after, your family went through a big tragedy.
We did.
And so tell us a little bit about that. The Bible means so much to me. It has brought me so much joy, so much hope. It's literally changed everything about my life. The Bible is literally God's love letter to us, and reading it has given me so much encouragement and so much wisdom. But there are a lot of people around the world that don't have access to a Bible at all. And that is why I'm super thrilled that I get to partner with Cru. Cru has missionaries all over the world, in nearly every country. They're helping people come to Jesus, but many of these new Christians don't have access to a Bible in their own language, which is clearly a problem because, hey, I just said that's given me hope, that's given me peace, that's given me literally a life-changing experience, and there's so many people who don't have access to that. And it's so easy for many of us just to, take for granted that we can order a Bible online or head to the bookstore and pick one up. We can probably prime a Bible to our house and it'll get there tomorrow. But Christians all over the world don't have that luxury, and here's where we can come in to help, friends. For only $25 a month, you can provide 3 people with Bibles in their own language every single month. When you sign up to do that, as a special thank you, Cru is also going to provide meals to 15 people through their aid ministry. Plus, as you do all this, we want to gift you by receiving a free copy of my Live on Purpose devotional book when you sign up to help. I wrote Live on Purpose as a daily devotional and a reminder to be intentional about choosing Jesus every single day. It's a companion to your regular daily Bible study, and I can't wait for you guys to read it. A lot of you have already signed up to help Cru accomplish their mission of distributing Bibles to everyone in the world who needs them. And I just want to truly say to all of our listeners, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for getting behind this vision. The Cru missionaries tell us that these new Christians are excited to begin reading their Bibles and just get so excited whenever they get that word in their hands. But there are so many more people around the world who need access to the word. So we got to keep doing this, friends. Simply text WHOA to 71326. That's WHOA to 71326 to help today. Imagine how much just this one gift can truly change someone's lives. It could change generations of lives. It can change a whole entire nation. So text WHOA to 71326 to help now, or visit give.cru, that's CRU.org/WHOA. Message and data rates may apply. Available to U.S. addresses only.
So Adams and I had not even been married a year whenever my brother was going to come stay with us for the weekend. My parents were going to go on a vacation, and we were really excited about it. My family was wonderful. Like, we grew up, I wouldn't say the perfect family, but we just really enjoyed spending time together. Mm-hmm. And my parents didn't really give us a bunch of gifts growing up, but they made sure that we went on family vacations. And I love that because we have all of these memories together. So I loved it that my brother Jeremy was going to come stay with us for the weekend. And I had all these big plans, and it was a Friday afternoon. And I kept calling him on the phone, and I couldn't get through to him. And I wasn't that worried initially, Sadie, because it was like, he's a kid, he's, young, and he's going to call me back whenever he wants to. But then as the nights started going on, I started to kind of get that little feeling in the pit of my stomach, like maybe something is wrong. And then we got a phone call, and the person on the other end of the line said, "You need to go to the hospital immediately. Your brother's been in a bad car accident." And so at that point, I had hope, and I remember jumping in the truck, and Adams was driving as fast as he could up to the hospital, and I had been given medical release. So I run into that hospital, and I'm waving that paper around, like, do whatever you have to do to save his life. And they took us into this room. My sister was at the hospital as well. Like I said, my parents were out of town, so it was just us. It was Adams and Julia and myself. And they took us into this room, and it's a room that you never want to be in. Wow. And it was there that I was told that my beautiful, hilarious, larger-than-life brother was dead. Wow. And I remember thinking, there's no hope. It was just final. There was nothing that could be done. And the days that followed were dark, really dark for our whole entire family. Through the generosity of other people, they sent a plane to get my parents, and they were able to come home that night. But there were so many stories. Even in the darkness, there were stories with little glimmers of light. So, for instance, people would come and they would say, Jeremy witnessed to me on the playground at Lee Junior High.
Wow.
Wow. And it was all these different little things. And he had a journal that he kept of sermons that he was going to preach.
No way.
So we always said that he would have been the one to have been that person. But then he was gone. Wow. And then what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And so for me, after that time, I had a spiritual father who really was faithful to walk me through that season of darkness. And then as I was able to make it out onto the other side, I remember thinking, I want my life to count for something. And it woke me up, Sadie. It was like, I wanted to be more eternally minded.
Wow.
I didn't want my life just to pass me by, and I didn't point anybody to Christ.
Yeah.
I didn't lead somebody to him like Jeremy had wanted to do. And I found myself emboldened to want to talk about Jesus and to talk about my faith, whereas I might not have had he not passed away.
Yeah.
And so as I started to wake up, as I said, it birthed in me this desire to want to do something ministry related.
Wow. That's so
here
cool.
we are.
That's
years later.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was just a kid when that happened, but I remember knowing about it because it was a really big deal in our community whenever that happened. So I know that was such a dark thing that y'all walked through, but I remember being at lunch with you and you mentioned it, and then you said, I really felt like when he passed away, I really was like, I want to be more like that. I want to be more ministry minded. Maybe I could do something like that. And I just found it like so interesting that his passing like really changed a lot of your hopes and dreams, because you were sharing with me some of your hopes before and then after. Right. So can you talk a little bit about before he passed away, like what you thought the dream life would be, and then as compared to maybe after?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I was being groomed to be that financial advisor. So I wanted the corner office, and, I thought I was going to wear my suit, every day and be that person. I was not cut out for that job. I'm just going to go on the record as saying that, I probably could have done it. But my husband ended up doing it. He's so much better than I ever could have been. And the Lord already knew that. Yeah. And I think that that's interesting too. That's cool. Because the Lord set it up.
That's cool.
For it to kind of switch and for Adams to have that career in financial planning and for me to let all that go.
Yeah. Is that hard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like that is hard. Like some people, you feel like you're entitled to have like the thing that you worked so hard for so long for. And then sometimes God will just pivot that plan. And so how was that pivot for you? Like, I mean, it is beautiful now looking back, but at the time, like letting Adams kind of take that and you starting to transition into the unknown future.
Well, it's interesting because the Lord did that. Like he pretty much moved me out of that space so that I would be set up to start to go down the path of ministry, because it really wasn't until Addie was born, my first daughter was born, that I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and work part-time. Well, then I was trying to find a suitable daycare for her and nobody would take her, like they were all full. And then I tried to find a nanny and then like everybody kept falling through the cracks. And Adam said, well, why don't you think about staying at home with her? And I'm like, no, like I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? Like, no. And I remember being at a conference and I could feel the Lord just pressing upon my heart. Okay, just try it. Just trust me. Trust me and see. Wow. If I won't do this for you. And so I did. So I decided I was going to stay at home with Addie. And it was during that time that I started teaching Bible study. Wow. Because I couldn't find anybody to lead a Bible study for me. And this woman said, you do it. God put it on your heart and you can do this, April. Wow. And it was that one act of obedience that set off this whole chain reaction that's still going on today.
Gosh, that's so cool.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I love that so much. And I love that, I think that sometimes we think when one thing goes wrong, like, oh, the whole plan's ruined.
Yeah.
But like just remembering that God's not surprised by that thing going wrong. And, sometimes we think that time is like, time waiting is time wasted, but time waiting is not time wasted. And like, if the Lord's asking you to take care of your kids for a season, you might be like, well, if I stay home, then how am I going to do this ministry? But if the Lord's asking, then like he has something in that time that the Bible study that who knew that was going to be it. But you are so good at speaking into the waiting season. Yeah. We just recently had Cultivate LA that my sister puts on, and you hosted, it was so good. You hosted a prayer for the waiting, and it was so good. I just thought like, man, so many people need that prayer over their life, but also just to hear someone that has had to wait and is now on the other side of waiting. And so speak some truth into the waiting seasons of life, because you've had a couple in your lifetime. Y'all, some seasons of life are just easier to be healthier than others. I mean, pregnancy, hard season of life to stay healthy. Postpartum, also a little bit hard, but there are small things that you can incorporate into any season of your life that can bring health and wellness to your body. And that is why I'm a big fan of AG1 by Athletic Greens. Whether you're into cardio, low impact workouts, or love to lift weights like Christian, AG1 has all the things your body needs to meet your goals. Christian is all about setting new goals in the gym. I mean, if you follow him on Instagram, he's always doing something new and something crazy. And forming healthy habits is a big deal to him, which is why he started trying AG1. He immediately noticed a difference that AG1 had in his day. I mean, it gives energy boost, it helps with focus, and also just a really cool thing that it helps you recover from your workout. That one scoop that's in your drink includes 75 vitamins and minerals to support our immune system and our gut health. And that's a big deal. And even for me, like, I might not be working out as much, but just taking this one scoop helps me to stay overall healthy and have all of the good things in my body. And not only does it help, like I said, your immune system and your body overall, but your gut health is actually a really big deal, y'all, because that actually affects your mental health. So if you need to get your gut healthy, this is a great way to start. Christian has gotten so many friends also on AG1 because we talk about it all the time. We take it with us whenever we travel. We just throw it in our backpack. It's super easy. The travel stuff is very convenient. And it was actually traveling with it that got his parents hooked on it because they saw that we had it. But AG1 was designed with ease in mind so that you can live a healthier lifestyle and a better lifestyle without having to do a lot. It's all about just making healthier choices here and there. Those little choices go a long way. I also love their vitamin D3 plus K2 drops because I'm a big fan of vitamin D. It has helped me in my overall health. And I just have always told people whenever they're feeling sick at all or like their skin's breaking, I'm like, take vitamin D. It literally helps me with like everything. It also helps your teeth, your bones, your heart, your immune system, pretty much everything. But all you have to do with these drops is just drop a few drops into your water bottle, into your food. It's super, super easy. Plus, every bottle has 600 servings, so you're not going to run out anytime soon. So if you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to athleticgreens.com/whoa. That's athleticgreens.com/whoa to check it out today.
So whenever you said about the waiting, it's something that we do, but it's not just sitting back and doing nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we think in the waiting, we're just going to sit here and we're just going to twiddle our thumbs, but we're not. It's an active verb. Mm-hmm. To wait is to entwine ourselves to God. That's and good. Whenever we wait like that, mm-hmm. and we wait expectantly for him to do mm-hmm. something that he has promised that he's going to do for mm-hmm. us, it's then that it's not just, okay, well, I'm just going to wait and see if this turns out. Mm-hmm. No, it's like expectantly waiting, praying for the Lord to show up and to be the promise keeper that we know him to be. Okay, so different seasons of waiting on Mr. Right. You know, like, what if you are waiting on the Lord to bring your Mr. Right mm-hmm. and you've been waiting forever? Well, maybe it's that the Lord wants you to find your full satisfaction in him. Yeah, that's first, good. You know, and no man can fill the shoes of Christ. It's good. You know, so we have to learn to put our full satisfaction in him first. And as we entwine our hearts to his, it's then that we'll see like Mr. Right probably will come along.
It's so true. And it normally is the moment when you hear people say, the minute I said I'm done. That's my story. And then the next day or that next month, whatever. That's so cool.
Then you met him. But for me, where the Lord really taught me this lesson was through 3 years of infertility. It's interesting because I said 3 earlier and I didn't realize it was 3 years of infertility too.
Yeah. Wow.
That's 36 months of hoping and praying that you're going to be pregnant. 36 months of having a negative pregnancy test. 36 months of showing up to somebody else's baby shower. And having to sip the punch and ooh and ah, all the little onesies, and act like, you're not heartbroken because you want that baby in your arms. And I just remember crying out to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, you put this dream inside of my heart. If you don't want me to be a mother, I need you to take this from me. I need you just to take it away. And I can remember him saying to me, and he was speaking through his word, through Psalm 37, where he said, I will give you the desires of your heart, but you're going to learn what it means to delight yourself in me first, April.
Wow.
And what he wanted me to know is, like, if he did give me that desire without me learning to delight myself in him, would I have turned that baby into an idol? Would I have worshiped her? Wow. Or would I, if I'd learned how to delight myself in him, then I would, I wouldn't be as tempted to do that. Yeah. It was a hard and a painful lesson to learn, but I'm so glad that I did. Yeah. Because now I try to view things through that lens of, he is a promise keeper. He is a good God. He does not leave his children in the dark. But he also wants us to delight in him. It's true. When we do that, then those desires do come, because desires aren't bad. Yeah. Like he puts those desires for a godly husband, for children, for a job promotion, for a big hope or a dream that we have inside of our lives. He puts that there. Yeah. But he wants us to know that he is our ultimate delight.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good. I love how you said that. Like, if I wouldn't have learned to delight myself in him, would she have become an idol? And that's so true. Like, desires are a good thing, but when desires become idols in our life, or desires become over God himself as the delight of our life, that's whenever it does not go good. And people get hurt, you get hurt. You will not, like you said, like a man will not be able to fill the shoes and the expectations that you have, that you really just need to find in Christ first. Right. And so, gosh, that is such a good way of saying that. And I love how you said waiting is not just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I think that sometimes we think of waiting as like literally a waiting room. Like when you're waiting for the doctor and you're like, oh, this is so boring. Like I just scroll, just waste my time. There's like waiting. It's like, no, waiting is not like a waiting room with God. Like waiting is working in the waiting. It's being intertwined by God. You're learning stuff in the waiting. I was just talking to a friend about how I'm reading this book, and I was like, I don't really know if I could tell you anything like I've learned from this book, because it's so far over my head that I don't know if I could repeat it to you, but I know I am getting stuff because of just, because in conversation stuff will come out and I'll be like, oh, I read that in that book. Yeah. And I don't even realize, because I couldn't form a beautiful sentence of what I'm learning, but the maturity in me is growing. The knowledge in my mind is growing. And sometimes it's like that in seasons with God. It's like, I can't tell you exactly what is happening, but I can tell you that I'm growing in it. I can tell you that I'm intertwined with God in it. And I think back to your ministry comment of, you felt like the Lord is calling you to ministry, and then God's also saying, stay home with your baby. Well, how do those two go hand in hand? Yeah. You're entering like a waiting season, but it's still in the midst of it. You started a Bible study and you were being intertwined. You were still working. And I think for me, like sometimes people ask me the question, well, they'll be like, Sadie, I want to do what you're doing. I'm waiting for that. Yeah. And I'm like, you're going to be waiting because, you don't just wait and all of a sudden, because what do you think I do? Because if ministry to you is a platform, are you waiting for a stage? Right. Are you waiting for a book deal? Mm-hmm. Are you waiting for this? Or if ministry to you is sharing the gospel, then you should do that now. Amen. Like, and I hope what you see me doing is that, it's not just podcasting or writing or whatever. That is an overflow of the platform that I'm using to do what I'm really doing and bringing people the hope of Jesus and the confidence in who God is and who they are in him. And so talk to me a little bit about just the idea of doing ministry and what that looked like to start and kind of what it looks like now, because I think people think ministry is like this platform when I think ministry is just so much bigger than that.
I know. Ministry, yes, it takes time to build it, but it also takes maturity. Mm-hmm. And that's the word that you used, is that you start to feel this maturity start to come and rest inside of you. And then you could dispense that out into other people. And, like people will say to me something like, oh, you're so wise, or, something like that. Well, that's because I walked with the wise. I mean, like, Proverbs says that if you want to be wise, you walk with the wise.
That's good.
And, being able to mentor is because so many people have poured into me. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're in a season of waiting in ministry, like, find you some mentors, find you somebody to talk to you and speak the truth into you, and then pour into the scriptures for yourself. And so you can start a Bible study.
Yeah.
You can do retreat ministry.
It's good.
You can do all of these different things, so it wasn't like somebody just knocked on my door and said, hey, write a devotional for us or write a Bible study. I mean, the Lord first had to mature that inside of me. And then I was able to say, okay, well, my next step is to go to seminary. Mm-hmm. And then I did go to seminary. And
with 2 kids.
With 2 little bitty kids.
Little kids.
And it was doable though. Like the Lord made a way for me to do it. So I graduate with my master's of theological studies. Well, there's no job waiting for me on the other side of that. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is to keep walking in obedience and start to put out devotionals on a blog or, in a video or different things. And as I'm doing that, I'm still serving locally.
Yeah.
And I'm still leading women right to the cross.
Yes.
And I think that that's such an important part because people overlook the ministry that's right in front
it's so
of their
true.
faces,
So
and
true.
you know about the retreat ministry that we've been able to cultivate here in Northeast Louisiana. And how beautiful has that? I would have missed it if I would have been so hyper-focused on doing
What's
ministry like what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So true.
You have to be obedient to where the Lord has put you for that season. Mm-hmm. And then he's going to increase that for you as you go.
So true. Y'all, to be honest, if I look back at my old yearbook pictures, it is just absolute cringe because I don't know about y'all, but for me, the worst hair days would happen on the yearbook picture day. And that still happens. It's like you're about to be in a wedding, you have a photo shoot or something's big, and it's like, that's when you're going to get the pimple. That's when your hair is going to look bad. And sometimes those bad hair days and blemishes catch us at exactly the wrong time. And I know I'm not the only one. Kitsch is making those days a thing of the past with amazing satin pillowcases, caps, and eye masks. Those products are the best sellers, and it's easy to see why. Y'all, I'm so stoked about the satin pillowcase from Kitsch. I love a good satin pillowcase, and it's just so much better for your skin than other ones and your hair. You wake up looking a lot better and your hair not such a mess, and Kitsch has such a good reputation for taking it to the next level. I ordered a king-size satin pillowcase from Kitsch in the charcoal color, but they also have so many colors to choose from, so I know you'll find one that you love. Friends, this is one of the easiest things that you can do to help fight frizzy hair, split ends while you sleep, and also keep your skin looking good. Bad hair days are something that we know a little bit too much of here in Louisiana with the humidity, so it's nice to have some help. Kitsch pillowcases are great for your skin too. Like I mentioned, they won't pull and tug on your face while you sleep, so they help prevent creases and pimples. And I know you don't want to be walking around, with a big old pimple on your face. So if you're tired of that, maybe give this a try. It worked for me, and I know you're gonna love it. Not to mention they're vegan and cruelty free, so they're really for everyone. So no matter what type of of skin or hair you have, Kitsch has a product for you. And I love that they also make it affordable for you as well. One of Kitsch's most popular products is the heatless satin curling rollers. So say bye-bye to heat damage, because these are the original, the OG, and still the best heatless curlers. So don't settle for all the knockoffs out there in the world. Get on this one. This is the OG. We are all about living original here. It's wild that these are the same people who started out selling hair ties door to door in 2010, and now they have all their products at more than 20,000 retail locations. Right now, Kitsch is offering you 30% off your entire order at mykitsch.com/whoa. That's right, that's 30% off anything and everything at mykitsch, spelled MyMyKitsch, KITSCH.com/whoa. One more time, that's mykitsch.com/whoa for 30% off your order. It's so true, because different people are called to different people, you know? Okay. I mean, we're all called to love God and to love people, and those are the people that are in front of us. And I'm not saying just because I have a platform that reaches a little bit broader, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't still be very aware of the people right in front of my eyes, and I'm still called to that, and vice versa. But I do think it is so cool that you're just like, I'm not going to miss what's right in front of me. And to be honest, like, the retreat ministry that we have here has literally changed me and Christian's lives, both of us, and our marriage, and transformed us. Yeah. And so I'm like, if people were not obedient to the call of local ministry, then I would not be who I am today. Then my husband would not be, our marriage would not be what it is today. And, you know, same for me. If I'm not obedient to the call that God's called me to do on a global level, then there are people who wouldn't be touched by the message. And so you really do have to be obedient to what God's saying. And if that's 5 people in your dorm room, then that's 5 people in your dorm room. Watch it multiply, you know? That's right. If it's 100 people in your church ministry, it's 100 people. Or if you are in the financial planner, that you did go that route, who's in your office, you know? Yeah. And so I just love that, you know, don't just look at ministry as a job title. It's so much bigger than that. It's a calling on your life as a follower of Christ, for everybody. And so I love that. And your story is just so cool. And so you did write a book. What did the process of starting to write the devotional book look like? You said no one was knocking on your door saying, write this book. How did that happen?
Well, it's funny because I was in seminary. And so I was writing paper after paper after paper for a professor. And I was writing for a man. And I was like, I do not want to write for me. I want to write. And I also went into seminary very naively because I thought we were just going to take tests about Jesus and, you know, learn about him. And it is writing 20-page papers in Turabian format. It's a lot of work. So I said, you know what, Lord, I want to do something for you. And this is back when blogging was a thing. And everybody and their sister had a blog. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start a blog. You know,
I love it.
I just want to do this. And so every Wednesday, I would just put out a little piece of light and a little piece of hope.
It's good.
And I just kept doing that consistently over and over and over again. Well, then the radio station picked it up, and then they said, okay, well, we want you to come in and start to put this out on the airwaves. I'm like, okay, I'll just do that. And then the next thing I know, I had a whole thing. And then Dayspring said, okay, well, we're going to put it into a book for you. You know,
so cool.
It was just acting in obedience again, just taking a step and
using what you have. Like I always say, like, you need a lot less than you think you need to do the thing that God's put in your heart to do. You really just need faith and you need obedience, you know? And I think if you have those two things, if you have the faith to believe that God can do what he says he can do, and you have the obedience to follow and wake up every day and work towards it, I mean, that's really what you need. I think about your story at Ann Voss Camp is a similar story. Yes. Started blogging, and then next thing you know, here it is. And then I just had someone on the podcast, Katie Davis. She is Kisses from Katie girl. She adopted like 13 girls in Uganda. She moved there when she was 18 years old, had 13 girls by the time she was 23, got married over there. Crazy story. But the reason she is known is because she started a blog. Yeah. And then people just started following it. People started listening. And you just use what you have, you know? And if it truly is who you are, then it will last. If you're building a platform that's on something that is not who you are, not authentic to who you are, it will fall. As soon as I always say it's like building your foundation on your makeup foundation. Like your makeup foundation, it will crack, it will get a little dewy, it will get all kinds of messed up. I probably need some powder right now because that foundation just doesn't last because it's a fake foundation. That's not the real color of my skin. It makes my skin look good, but it's not me. But if I build a foundation on who I really am, then that lasts. But not even that. I got to build a foundation on who God is because I'm shaky. I'm wavering. And so I love your story. And, we talked about how we were going to go to the verse because, you've had things in your life that are really hard. Yeah. I mean, we're just touching on some high level things like your brother passing away, waiting for a baby. You're currently walking through a health situation that's been really hard. Yeah. So taking that verse of, what the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. How do you find truth in that whenever life is hard? And I think, hearing your story, you can see the truth in it because you see the good. How did you get made to shine, and all this hope from hard things? You see that, but can you let's go a little bit deeper into that verse? Yeah.
And I think you and I both love light. We talk about the light of Christ all the time. And it's hard to find the light when days are really dark, right? And whenever you're walking through that valley of the shadow of death, there's a shadow, but the shadow means that the light is right around the corner. So as we have these things that happen to us, we're gonna have things that cause us to be in the dark, whether it is from external circumstances, which would be like losing a brother or having a health scare or having things that happen to us and it's by no fault of our own, or we're going to have internal things, which would be sin or just making poor decisions and having natural consequences that happen because of that. Both of those can lead us to a place of darkness. But if we can, number one, if we're in that because of the sin, then we repent and we turn towards the light. Follow Christ, or if we're just walking through a bad season, how do we find the light in that? And how do we know that God is still good and what the enemy meant for evil, God can turn for our good? And it goes back to me to trust. Like, Sadie, that's it. Like, trust. Do I trust that he is for me or he is against me?
Wow.
Is he trustworthy? And I had to come to that place. Like, I had to understand that just because Jeremy is no longer on this earth, that doesn't mean that A, I'm not going to see him again, or B, that God wants me to stop living.
Yeah.
He didn't want me to stop living. He wanted me to pick up that mantle and to go and to do the things. And so I love the verse. Can I read it?
Please do. Yes.
Okay. Because I think it applies to my ministry and to your ministry. And it says, you intended to harm me. This is Joseph who's talking about how his brothers had intended to harm him. And the brothers come and they're asking for forgiveness at the end. And it says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives.
So good.
And I think about that. I think about you, and I think about your boldness to go into prisons and to preach the gospel and to have a big conference and to make a bold ask. Who wants to follow Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? And then we're baptizing so many different people. And I think about, for me as well, like, what the enemy meant for evil, God turned it around for good. And it was for the saving of lives.
It's good. Yeah.
So then that way these other people could hear about hope and about light.
It's good.
And then that way they could come to that other side, you know? So if you're sitting there and you're thinking like, I don't know, like, I don't know if he is for me in this situation. You got to go back to trust. Is he trustworthy? Who does God say that he is? If you don't know, then you got to dig into his word and you got to find out.
Good.
And you mentioned my health. Recently, the Lord led me to have an elective mastectomy. And it was really like one of those things. It's like, wow, like this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it has been. But my cancer my chances for breast cancer had risen substantially. My mom's a breast cancer survivor. The Lord has healed her and she's whole. But I thought for my future, for my husband, for my girls, it was important for me to believed the Lord was leading me to do this.
Yeah.
And had I not trusted him through this whole process, it would have been easy in those weeks of recovery just to say like, oh my gosh, like, I have made a huge mistake. And there were some nights that I was probably like, what have I done? But I trust him. I trust him so completely. And he's dropped little stories throughout the whole recovery, showing me, I led you to this, and I'm going to get you through it.
It's cool.
And so whatever it is, whatever somebody's dealing with, you have to know that you can trust your Savior and that he's on the other side. If there's a shadow, there's light right around the corner.
Come on, girl. She better preach. I love that so much. Well, I just think you said it earlier that you wanted an eternal perspective. And I think that part of that trust is knowing that God sees things from an eternal view and not just this temporary view that we see them in. And truly, like with Joseph's story, at one point of the story, it looks just horrible. Yeah. Then the next point of the story, it looks just horrible. Then the next point, it's just horrible. I mean, he goes from being thrown into a pit by his brothers, saying that he's dead, sold into slavery. He's now in, Potiphar's house and gets accused of doing something he didn't do falsely. He's misunderstood. He goes to prison for years. And somebody's like, this is horrible. But then you give it time, and look at what the Lord did and how God was actually getting him into a position where he's second in command and has this authority and is able to help them literally not go through the famine that they would have had to, or as they did, kind of provide for them. And so it's like, whoa, you can see it through that. But do you think Joseph could have seen it when he's sitting there in the prison cell? That would have been hard. But as time goes on, he began to see. But with Joseph is really cool because he really did. It says in all that he did that the Lord made him successful. In every season, even the hard ones, God still was there. God was still doing something in it. God was still working in that waiting. And then you look at your story and some of these situations, it just, you said when your brother died, it seemed hopeless. It was dark, and moments of waiting as you're sipping that punch that doesn't taste too sweet in the moment. You're like,
making your stomach hurt.
Yes. But then you look at it later and you're like, but look at what God did. And in some stories, it doesn't always turn out to where on this side we see the good come. I mean, even in Hebrews 11, where it talks about all these people of faith, and it says, and all these people went on to pass away without getting all that they had promised. But then it says, for God had something better in mind for them that was to come, eternity, right? It says he wasn't ashamed to be their God because he knows he's trustworthy. He's like, I know what's coming. It's so good. I promise eternal life and it's with me and it's so good. And so I think sometimes we have to know that God's perspective is just different than ours and trusting that he really does have our future and it really is good. And whether the future's tomorrow or the future's eternity, thank God we have a hope of eternity, because without the hope of Jesus, what do you have to hope in? What other option is there? And that the world's giving us, I haven't heard of a good one. So, I mean, there's that. But, I mean, the gospel, that is the good news. And so it's so good. Well, your story is beautiful, and seeing where God's taking you and what you're doing. And, I mean, you're just getting started on putting so much out that people can get excited about. I know you have a podcast, so share with everybody your podcast.
Okay. It's called The Reflecting Light Show, and you can find it on YouTube, or you can search for it under April Rodgers.
Awesome.
And I'm Rodgers.
Awesome. Y'all go check it out. She also has the Made to Shine Devotional Book and more projects on the way. So it's just a blessing to get to learn from you, April. And I'm glad that all of you are going to get to learn from her story too. And I'm sure that so many of you can relate to just a lot of things that she's talking about, whether in the past you went through something hard or you're currently walking through the valley of the shadow of death. But I love how she said, if there's a shadow, there is light. And there's just so much hope in that. And notice in each part of her story that even in the hard parts, there are glimmers of light that were sprinkled into the darkness. And so I just pray that you would have eyes to see that in the midst of dark seasons, that you would have the eyes to see the glimmers of hope and the glimmers of light that God might be doing. And that might be you having to shift your perspective a little bit in this moment, but just believing that for you all. And I hope that you have a fantastic week. I hope that this strengthens you in your walk with Christ. And again, we're just so grateful, April, that you came on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.